Brett Okamoto in Atlanta, Georgia, gearing up for UFC 236, a co-main event between the man I'm standing next to, Israel Adesanya, versus Kelvin Gastelum for the interim middleweight championship. And the man to his right, I'll actually let Israel introduce him. We don't see him very much in interviews, so who is this guy?
He's all right. This is my head coach, Eugene Bareman.
Eugene, what is it like coaching Israel Adesanya? He seems like a larger-than-life personality.
You want the honest answer?
In the cage and out. What's it like? I want it from him.
Don't worry, I always give the honest answer. No, I mean, sometimes it's difficult, but most of the time it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Most of the time he's onto it. But like every fighter I teach, it's ups and downs. Sometimes you're having a bad day, you got to pick them up. But for the most part, it's a pleasure teaching these guys of this caliber.
I know you guys have told this story before, but it's a head of a big title fight, and it sounded like Eugene wasn't quite sold on Israel right away. It wasn't a marriage made in heaven right from the start, was it?
Yeah, that was based on the amateur fight I had when he first cornered me, without really knowing who I was. So, yeah, I showed him.
What are your first memories of Israel?
Well, that's one of my early memories. I was like, but the thing that stuck out to me the most was when I asked him how much training he was doing, and he said he'd pretty much just watched YouTube for a week. And I was like, 3 weeks. Then I was like, what am I doing? So yeah, that's one of my earliest memories.
Well, you guys have been together for years, and you traveled all over the world, and you've been in big fights. Is this sort of the goal? I mean, are we at the goal? Are we at that moment that you thought you were always kind of going towards?
Yeah, I mean, me and him differ in opinion because I've watched a couple of his interviews. For me, this is a stepping stone. For me, Robert has the belt. For me, this belt means nothing but the opportunity to challenge for the real belt. For him, it maybe means a little bit more, but for me, we have to win this belt to get to the real belt. To get to the real belt, you got to get the lineal belt. That's the one Robert has, not the one we're challenging for now.
You were kind of shaking your head there when he was talking. What is this about? What is the significance of it to you? Does this feel like the one you've been working towards?
Just like a stepping stone, like he said. It's just another trinket you grab along the way. Even when I get the real belt, when we get the real belt, it's just going to be another one we grab along the way. What really, I know for him as well, it's not really about belts, it's about the challenges, it's about the moments, fighting these guys of our era. And then, yeah, because we've just been doing this all over the world for years. Like, just go to different lands, new lands, beat their best guys, then go back home.
And you talk about the challenges. You've said this week that Kelvin Gastelum is not your toughest challenge. He is not the toughest fighter that you will have faced. Eugene, I'll ask you, do you agree with that?
I think what he brings to the ring, what he brings physically, is our toughest challenge. What Israel, I think, is referring to is the mental barriers he had to get over to fight Silva are far more. There were far more at stake in that fight than there is for this one. This one's just like there's no mental barriers. Like Calvin's just a guy. He's had 100 fights. Like he's fought guys like Calvin before. Silva was a lot different. That was a guy he put on a pedestal from a very young age. So for him, that's why it was so challenging. For me, this is going to be the most challenging fight of his MMA career.
I want to ask you, Eugene, one of the moments that stand out to me of this year, 2019, is the weigh-in of UFC 234 after Anderson cried, and then he came in the back, and he was emotional. He was very emotional after seeing Anderson. When you saw how emotional he was getting, did you worry that maybe Anderson had played a mind game on him?
I mean, 100%. I worried that whole camp. I did a very uncharacteristic thing, and I came out and talked about Anderson and some of the mishaps he had with USADA and stuff. I wouldn't normally do that, but I did that to let him know that this is just a guy. This is just a guy. I wanted to like humanize him, and that's the only reason I did that. Like, so I was checking that the whole camp, and then when it got to that, I did get a bit worried. But he assured me. He came straight backstage and said he tried to get me again. He tried to get me. So we were on it. We were on top of him. Yeah.
What about the fight itself? Another fascinating thing about that fight is that he said he may have held back and he may not have put it on Anderson like he would have some other people just because of the respect that he had for him. What was it like for you watching that fight?
Yeah, I mean, I love the fight. Like, I thought the fight was like technical brilliance. Like, but it wasn't just that he held back. He held back because we knew that there'd be times when Anderson would try to call him on and try to draw Israel onto the shot. We talked about it for weeks. So that was part of the reason he was holding back. He wasn't going to be stupid and run into one of those shots and give him that chance. So that was all part of it.
Technically speaking, we can see the mental side of it with the Anderson fight. But technically speaking, you're saying that you think Kelvin is the toughest fight he's had. Technically speaking, do you agree with your coach on that?
One of, not the toughest, but one of.
Talk about Kelvin as an opponent, Eugene.
I tell you what, he's got power and he's got power that he's able to apply that. Like a lot of guys have power, but they're not able to apply it in the same fashion as Kelvin. To give Israel trouble, you're gonna have to like get some sort of respect in the stand-up.
Don't give him the blueprint.
If they don't,
He's an open book.
if they don't,
We can give him the blueprint.
if they don't already know this, then there's something wrong with the coaching team. So trust me, they already know they've done just as much due diligence as we have. So, but yes, the guy that's going to give Israel trouble is someone that can like get his respect in the stand up. For me, I don't think he can. I think Israel. I think just having a left hand and a pretty good right hook, and it's not enough. But I mean, that's why we're fighting, so we can answer those questions. Yeah.
He might throw a kick this fight, because I remember the last time he threw a kick, but he might.
He got a good little body kick that just slips under the elbow, which is pretty good. But I mean, when you've had 100 kickboxing fights, you've seen what Kelvin's bringing in the stand-up. You've seen it 100 times, so it's like, yeah. Well, how do you? It's the other factors in MMA that's going to make it an interesting fight.
I've heard you mention numerous times about you've referenced his soft midsection. Is that something that you're kind of planting in him, or is that a target of yours? Why have you kind of honed in on that?
Inception. Planting the seeds. Who knows? I might go for there's many targets, not just his midsection. His head, his legs. He's got 2 legs, right? So, and he's southpaw, and he's very heavy on those legs. But like I said, he's got a soft midsection. Big head, easy target, so, and he moves it well as well, but all those guys that he's faced when they're moving their head, they're just head hunting. I'm like, his legs and bodies are right there. That's like so many other options. So, like he said, he's got 3 or 4 main weapons we're just looking at, and like, okay, we can check these, but then I've got a whole arsenal. We've got a whole arsenal of stuff that, yeah, we're bringing to the table.
Well, last question for you. It felt like in Australia that you had some post-fight plans, that you were going to win, you were going to beat Anderson Silva, and then maybe there was going to be some interaction between you and Rob. Obviously, it didn't happen for the reasons we all know. Do you feel like he should be here? Do you feel like he should have come out as a champion and been in Atlanta to watch this fight?
Don't care. Personally, honestly, doesn't matter to me.
Thank you guys for the time, and best of luck in the fight.
Easy. Thank you.